What's going on, everyone? This is your boy AshTheMan, and thank you so much for tuning in. So we are here to talk about ID Invaded episode 6, Circled. Now, this episode definitely focused on a lot of things that is going on, things that holds a lot of mystery, that things that we're going to be looking good to the different transition that is going to be going from episode 6 and onward. So let's definitely talk about it. But before we talk about it, I just want to have you guys subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button. That really does help me out. Other than that, let's talk about this episode. Now, episode 6 definitely adds on the final conclusion on the Gravedigger and what transpired and how that she was able to do what she do. Now, she does have help from one of the guys that was Sakuda victims. He pretty much liked her, but she always kept him at a distance. But he did her bidding because she was able to kind of forced him to do so. So it was kind of interesting. They had a little fighting scene, which was kind of weird. That Hanamochi, she basically shot a bullet and it went through the hole in his head instead of actually hitting his brain. I guess for that brief moment as the bullet was traveling, I guess he wasn't moving right. But anyways, the conclusion came to him getting stabbed by Hanamochi and pretty much taking the Gravedigger into custody. Now, when she got into custody, she definitely reviewed all of the locations of the victims, since she's no longer going to be witnessing the videos and everything that transpired. She pretty much just once she was captured and seen that her admirer died, it was all over at that point. But it's a couple of things that did transpire that made things a little bit crazy. In the previous episodes, we did get to see that Sakata, he was able to have another interaction with John Walker, which is supposed to be the main villain. And John Walker is supposed to be orchestrating all these killings going on due to fear and experience, kind of messing with their heads. So we got a chance to see him in the last few episodes, and even in this episode, when he actually goes into the subconscious of the actual killer, which was the chick. It was this endless train that she was going through, and pretty much, of course, you know how it is. I'm Sakata, the genius detective, and I got to figure out Kairu's death. Now, in this sense, they actually added more of an in-depth to this, and I'm gonna elaborate on this. Now, when he's on this infinity train, he goes in a complete circle, pretty much follow the blood prints, and he ends up seeing a younger version of the perpetrators for this crime. They talked about it, and it really wasn't no purpose for him talking with him, and I guess it just added more in depth into the characters as they was. But in my opinion, it really wasn't a reason for him to talk to him. But nevertheless, he ended up still being allowed to stay in this world to try to do more investigation. Now, he has a moment where he actually cries and actually hugged Karu's dead body and said, it wasn't never supposed to be like this. I was supposed to save you, and I'm going to find the killer. And it comes to make you think when he enters this ID, he's not supposed to retain any type of memories. But it goes back into the first few episodes where I was, brainstorming and explaining that, maybe he uses that a way for him to not forget what is his purpose, what drives him. Because they try to get Sakuda to go in there and, pretty much solve these mysteries. But Fukuda, they end up doing a trial version with him, and it just didn't work out. So it makes you think maybe this system was really just only designed for him because he meets the perfect requirements. But this is where I'm gonna point out a couple of point views and let you know what really stood out for me. Now, in the funeral of the people who lost their lives when they was in a soy sauce factory and the building exploded, losing a lot of officers in that time, they is running it down to where John Walker could be amongst them within the organization, because there's a few things they added on in there. For one, the ID world and everything that was built, the person who was behind it is has not been able to be found. Like, he pretty much disappeared. So that's one thing that stands out. Secondly, the being able to have access and being ahead of them, you could tell that pretty much if he is among them, he know that makes sense to every step that they take. Everything that they do will be realized a lot faster. So he pretty much is just a puppeteer controlling the puppets. It's all going according to what he has. Now, another thing they added on about John White, and now they know that it's actual for sure John Walker, is that when they went to go search the perpetrator's house, they seen that there was mics and cameras set up, and it relates to back to Sakaido's case in which he, his wife and his daughter, was murdered. Now, I just want to elaborate on that too real quick, because I don't think his wife was murdered. I think she may have did some type of suicide or something due to the issue. I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that they really did express how his daughter was murdered in a few episodes ago. So that's one thing that does stand out. But however, with everything that's going on and transpired in this, we can honestly say that John Walker definitely has a bigger purpose in this. A bigger purpose to where you can tell that it's going to start getting real crazy. It's going to really focus on how he's manipulating the situation. Now, if you try to dive into of who it could be, well, that's another video to talk about that. We just pretty much going over everything in episode 6. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is Hadamochi and her position now. Now, in this episode, she did take someone's life. And being able to solve the mystery and everything, her partner recommended her to be another source for the ID well. Now, this is interesting because when she got the drill in her head, and now that she's experienced the action and being able to take a life and meeting the requirements for it, and not saying that he doing it because she's a murderer now, no, not saying that. It's just that she would be a perfect candidate to being able to have more of an option for the ID well, because John Walker is definitely a problem. And if she was able to experience it and kind of close in on certain things that was going on with that particular case, then maybe she'd be a good fit other than Sakaido. So, but that pretty much wraps everything up. I really give this episode high regards on everything that's going on. The transitions and everything that's going on with this episode really stands out for me. There's some things that could have been better. There could have been a better, impact on the funeral with all of their colleagues. It really seems like they were really emotionless to their comrades dying in the field of action. They could have been more with the scene with them catching the perpetrator. I mean, I understand the old girl had a moment to where she kind of reached out for him, but I feel like they should have more of an impact with her actually opening up more about her emotions towards him. So, but however, I think this will still go down as my favorite episode so far because of everything that transitioned to how serious the matter of John Walker have gotten. So, good deal. Well, other than that, I just want to thank you guys for definitely tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button and leave a comment below. Other than that, AshTheMan is out. Peace.